the world has been highly connected. Things taking place in a certain region or country may create changes in another region or country. So it's important to have guidelines, policies, measures to use opportunities and to overcome challenges in the flat world nowadays. Dr. John Walsh is Associate Dean and Director of English Language Programs at the International College of Kruk University in Thailand. He is an editorial board member of the BNU Journal of Economics and Business. We had him as a guest speaker on May 25th at the seminar, How Recent Upheavals in the Global Economy are Affecting International Business and Implications to Vietnam, and we held a short conversation with him to discuss this topic afterward. Dr. John, in your opinion, what factors affect the global economy in the year 2022?
Well, it is certainly true that the world seems to be facing a concatenation of events of particular grimness at the moment, starting with the coronavirus pandemic, which reached an early crescendo in the Western world, but has far from finished now. We see increases in new strains across a number of countries, and the world will not be safe from this pandemic until such time as everyone, in whatever country they may live, has had the opportunity to be properly vaccinated and protected against it, not just for their own sake, but to prevent further mutations and new strains affecting people and reinfecting people across the world. Now, this pandemic has also given rise to an enormous and burgeoning economic crisis, as many governments have been obliged to borrow huge amounts of money to keep their economies going, while at the same time encouraging people to work from home or at least stay at home to prevent infections rising at too great a rate, which would have overwhelmed their health services. And it's yet to be seen whether the global economy will recover from this unprecedented level of debt. People are concerned about debt. Sometimes people are too concerned about debt because in most cases we owe the money to ourselves, right? We owe the money to our grandchildren and we can repay it in the future. However, there may be a tipping point which will come when the amount of debt is simply unsustainable at a global level. Now, these problems have been intensified by the Russian war in Ukraine, which has been a disaster not just for the people involved, but also for international relations across the world, and also potentially in terms of food insecurity. Ukraine, and to a lesser extent Russia, feed hundreds of millions of people, especially in Africa, with grains which are grown in those countries. And currently the grain is being blockaded in the Black Sea. And if the grain cannot be released in time, then it's likely that millions of people will face food insecurity and indeed starvation. This is already happening in some parts of Northeast Africa, and it could spread to a very alarming extent. These events occur with the threat of inflation caused by increases in oil and gas prices, and because of supply chain issues in the wake of the initial coronavirus pandemic, which led to pent-up demand for consumer goods of all kinds which have not been met, and by profiteering by some large corporations. These events occur at the same time as the ongoing climate emergency, which is threatening to destroy the nature of human society completely. We have seen this Northern Hemisphere summer, unprecedented heat waves across many parts of the world, which may at last bring some sense to governments to the fact that they really must start to act with urgency to deal with these problems. So in all, it's a very grim situation.
What policies should Vietnam prepare to reduce negative impacts according to you?
Well, one area in which I would commend the Vietnamese government in recent years has been the willingness to participate in transnational agreements and partnerships on bilateral and multilateral levels. Vietnam has joined more agreements, I think, than pretty much any other country in the world, and has done what it can to demonstrate its ability and willingness to be a good neighbor in all contexts. And this is something which will, I think, stand the country in good stead in the future when people realize that global problems like the climate emergency require global solutions, and Vietnam is well placed to be part of the solution making process by being such a good neighbor to other people. In addition, there is a need for promoting resilience in the country in terms of responding to climate change urgency, such as rising sea levels, and also resilience in terms of the economy and producing or helping to produce young people, young members of the labour force who are able not just to be good factory workers or good semi-skilled operatives, but to be able to take responsibility, the willingness to entertain some risk for themselves, and to help build new institutions, new corporations which will provide employment in addition to the employment and the support provided by international inwards investors, which hopefully will continue for a long time. But the day has gone when inward investing relied mainly on low labor costs. These days, companies need more opportunities to make partnerships with local companies, local individuals, especially small and medium-sized enterprises. And currently, Vietnam suffers from the missing middle phenomenon, in which there are a large number of very small or micro-level organizations, but very few medium-sized ones with up to 100, 200 employees perhaps, which are vital for inward investing companies who want to establish supply chains with local partners. So more could be done in the area of producing human capital and in producing SMEs which are capable of dealing on an equitable basis with inward investors.
What opportunities can Vietnam find from the global upheavals?
Yes, there are opportunities. There are always opportunities as well as threats from any event, especially events of the magnitude that we have been witnessing. You may have seen in recent weeks in America, there has been a problem with the lack of baby milk, the formula for baby milk, which was produced by a virtual monopoly of 3 or 4 American companies, and one of them was forced to close down production because of production kind of operational issues, and others were facing supply chain constraints, and as a result there was this great shortage of baby milk powder, and families who need baby milk really can't substitute for this, and so it was looking to be a significant health issue. So as a result, great steps have had to be taken to source additional sources of baby milk from other countries, and it has helped to provoke people, not just in America, but in many Western countries or the global North countries, to say, well, should we be relying to such a great extent on the existing convoluted and lengthy supply chains that our corporations have created, and should we be reliant on this kind of just-in-time supply of goods that we really might need for strategic levels of security? And as a result, the logic of supply chains of maximizing profitability and ensuring that the production takes place at the places of lowest cost and so forth, this logic is likely to be compromised in areas in which governments will identify as being strategically important, and this will lead to some reshoring from offshore production to the home country, or cross-shoring, right, moving from one country to another country, which is thought to be less likely to be susceptible for changes in supply chain issues. Now, Vietnam, of course, has always been positioning itself as a place for welcoming long-term foreign investment. I remember the last event I did when I was in Vietnam just over a year ago. There was a leading government spokesperson who said that the current policy was to prepare for Vietnam as an eagle's nest, right? The place where the very largest companies will come and invest in Vietnam on a long-term basis, and they will have its own babies, and their babies will grow up, and so on and so forth. And I know that this is happening now with Apple. Apple is thinking of moving some production from China to Vietnam, partly, well, for various reasons, right? For various reasons, China has become a less welcome partner for production over the last couple of years, and it seems quite possible, if not certain, that it will become less popular in the future. So there are opportunities for Vietnam to take advantage of this by securing some of those production facilities inside the country, which were previously in other countries. It's also an opportunity for a demonstrated good neighbor, right, to become a trusted partner. And as we have seen with arrangements and agreements between Vietnam and the European Union, as people deal with each other, they come to know each other, trust flourishes, and once trust exists, people are more willing to do business with those partners because it becomes cheaper. The higher the trust is, the less time and money has to be spent on quality assurance, checking up on the partner and so forth. And so transaction costs are lower. A trusted partner is cheaper than a non-trusted partner. And Vietnam is doing well in establishing itself as a current and future trusted partner.
Could you please share your opinions of the recent upheavals in the global economy?
Well, at a time when issues like the global climate emergency require global solutions, I do think there is a real danger that the world faces the prospect of deglobalisation on a very dangerous basis. It is possible that two of the larger countries will intensify their alliance and break away from the Western world, and this will force countries like Vietnam to put themselves in one camp or another camp. And Vietnam, in similar way to Thailand, where I'm speaking from, has endeavored to navigate a course between alliances, right? Neither coming too strongly on the side of America nor too strongly on the side of China, but having to balance and live in a world in which these two parties exist, and which previously had been working together. But if that system breaks down, and if we start to have large-scale, intense conflict between two new blocs in the world, and this will be very dangerous and damaging, not just in its own sake, because it will deflect attention from the urgent need to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, with the threat of food insecurity, and with, as I say, the climate emergency. So this is a real danger, and I hope that cooler heads will prevail, and people will realize that we, as a species, really need to be working together to overcome these existential threats that we face at the moment.
What will the VNU Journal of Economics and Business should do to attract manuscripts?
It is clear that there are some subjects which are going to be of increasing importance in the future. Fintech, blockchain technology and sustainability, the transformation to green economy. These are issues which are going to be essential to cover in any academic journal. However, more broadly, I like to see journals which are inclusive rather than exclusive in nature, and which promote cross-thinking, cross-breeding of ideas, multidisciplinary studies and so forth. As an academic, we are often told that we should be more interdisciplinary in nature, we should adopt a wider range of ways of thinking and so forth. And I agree, this is a good thing to do, but whenever I and my colleagues try to do this, it's almost impossible to get published because journals have such a narrow focus, or many journals in any case, have such a narrow focus that they reject anything which does not appear directly to relate to their very narrowly defined scope. So I hope that however the focus is in the future, however well it is defined, that there is scope for people who produce papers which introduce thinking from different areas of thought, different means, different methodologies and so forth, and which are welcoming to people prepared to think outside of the currently defined boxes, the silos in which international business and economics increasingly are confined. So inclusivity, I think, is what I would like to see promoted.
Dr. John, thank you for the insightful analysis and policy implications you have shared. In the recent context, Vietnam should maintain its geostrategic position, ensuring its adaptability and self-reliance in relations with big countries. This continues to pose challenges for Vietnam and requires Vietnam a new way of approaching in the international integration. The VNU University of Economics and Business will hold more seminars to discuss the geopolitical and economic picture of the world, the region, and Vietnam. By doing so, we hope to increase the university's academic prestige and to make policy recommendations to Vietnam. Thank you for your watching.